sad reality of what happened with my son. And then she recommended me because she worked as a voluntary assistant back in the prison many years ago, and she'd obviously knew Razia, and she said, right, now you need to contact Himaya Haven. So when I did, it was such a relief that I did contact yourselves, knowing there is a safe place for me and there's somebody I can ring and talk to. So that's how I heard about you, about yourself. When my son was sentenced, we didn't have any form of contact with him, and for 3 weeks it was quite consistent. Every week we'd not heard anything from him. We were really worried that, is he okay? We knew he'd obviously moved to a prison, and we knew the name of the prison, but knowing he couldn't contact us or we couldn't contact him was quite heartbreaking. So that wait for 3 weeks, and that's when I approached and reached out to Himaya Haven to ask how can I get in touch with him, or how can I, find out if he's okay. So with your guidance and support, that was really, really helpful. I did have difficulties getting support from the prison itself. Knowing when he was sentenced and then he was moved to the prison, we tried to get in touch with the prison to find out if he'd been all right, because he never had our mobile numbers, which was quite concerning because we were thinking, how was he going to ring us? Because we weren't prepared for him to be sentenced. Our solicitor kept on saying, no, he'll be, most probably get a tag, or, so it come to a really big shock. So when he was moved to the prison, he did call us. We couldn't call him, but when we did ring the police, they weren't really helpful. They just said, we'll do a welfare check, and that was it. And we did say, well, can I please speak to him for 2 minutes, or can you arrange for somebody to give him a call? So that was a challenge, the fact that we couldn't speak to him. And that 3 weeks of not speaking to him really I did have difficulties contacting my son in the prison, which of the Bringsbed one, contacted you, and then I said, I haven't spoken to my son, can you please find out if there's any way, and that's when I think it was Razia who then said, right, I'll send an email to the prison with your details, and your son will be able to contact you with the details. So that's where Himaya came in, which I was so grateful for. And then just after, I think it was on Eid day, he rang me, which was really helpful. But apart from that, I didn't get any response back from the prison, which was, it was heartbreaking for me, to be honest. There is the Himaya Haven who you can contact and talk about your experience or your difficulty that you're facing, which is brilliant. I'm 100% going to support this service, because I think if it wasn't for Himaya Haven, we'd be absolutely distraught, and I think we would be in a really high form of depression, because it's a trauma that I was facing. I am still facing this trauma, but it's just comforting knowing I can ring and, share my feelings and feel that I am being supported. And the support that I received from Himaya Haven was absolutely fantastic, first and foremost. I think the support, knowing I was heard, that was the most important thing to me. The fact that I would be heard and that my emotions counted. But whereas in family, or in my situation, it was my ex-husband, where, there was a lot of conflicts between me and him then, because of what had happened. But I found Himaya Haven was my safe place to go, that I could share my feelings and my emotions, whereas being a parent, I'm sure you can imagine, you have to be strong for your other children. And that was my case, where I couldn't break down, because I didn't want my daughter to feel that mom's breaking down and, how am I going to look after mom? So it was nice for me to just ring and, break down basically and say, look, I need help because I don't know how to deal with it. So I think that's the support I did receive. I was listened to, and I felt comfortable sharing my experience. Last 2 weeks, have been really difficult in the sense where, I couldn't even go into my son's room. And, every time even though his room is right opposite mine, but knowing he's not in there or looking at his clothes would just break me down. And
I think, yeah, I couldn't, and I had to ring my manager and say, look, I don't know what to do anymore. I can't focus on my work. I can't focus on anything. I'm just numb. I don't know how to deal with it. And then that's when she said, Mary, go and talk to Himaya, and I think they'll be able to support you as best as anybody can, really, because they know and they understand what you're going through. But yeah, it's honestly some days, like last 2, 3 days, I've just been in bed, don't know what to do. I'm procrastinating so much, which is not like me at all. I'm really a hands-on person and very, very proactive, but yeah, some days are good days, some days are bad days, and you just don't know what to do. When I spoke to my daughter about Himaya Haven, I think she said, Mom, it's good. I mean, that's her word. She said, oh, Mom, I'm glad you found somebody who you can speak to, share your experience with. Because I think she did also find that I wasn't really coping well with the situation with my son. It was really difficult, whereas I was in bed for 2 days. I couldn't get out. Just the constant fact knowing he's in prison, not being able to hear or, see if he's eating or if he's sleeping, how is his mental health? I think that was really, really hard. But knowing, Himaya have been into the prison, they've supported him. I remember when, Haven said to me, right, we've supported the prisoners by giving them a nice pack, Ramadan pack. So that was really comforting to know that he'd had like dates, water, the prayer mat, books. That was really, I think that gave peace to my heart. We family members, especially like the parents, the siblings, we get forgotten actually. Through my experience, not one person, even up until this day, has asked me, how are you? Mentally, how are you? And the only first person that ever asked me was Himaya Haven. And that really did touch my heart. You want to hear those words. You want somebody to say, you know what, you're strong. Himaya Haven. And the first time you said, you know what, you're doing great. And that for me meant a lot. And the emotional impact that we faced was the shock. Um, I think it's really hard to describe because you're in shock, you're in trauma, your body, your brain doesn't know really how to accept it. I think for me personally, I think I was numb. We were all emotional. I remember when my daughter first told me, and she rang me, and the first thing she said to me was, Mom, don't panic. And I knew at that instant something really bad has happened for her to say, and I could see in her voice, she was going to cry maybe, or, she was trying to be strong, but because she knew she was talking to me, she couldn't really cry. So she said, Mom, she declared it to me, Mom, this is what's happened to my son. And I just said at the first instance was, right, okay, it's all right, don't worry. So I was comforting her more than, but it did affect me. I think I went into a really big shock knowing he'd been arrested, and then for 3 days he was in prison. We didn't know what was going to happen, whether they were going to take him into court or whether they're going to release him on bail. So, yeah, I think we've all been devastated by the news. I think it's really hard to describe any words to, justify what we've been through. I know there's parents out there maybe who just can't express, or they won't be able to share what they're going through, and it's like you're suffering in your own self, which causes again then anxiety, depression, causes so many other mental issues. But no medicine can really fix that, I don't think. I think the fact that you've got somebody there who understands, or who have been to the prison and seen it for themselves, that helps us to understand the process a lot more better. We have emotions and, we're upset, but I felt through my experience, not one person, even up until this day, has asked me, how are you? Mentally, how are you? And the only first person that ever asked me was Himaya Haven. When I spoke to the staff, and they said, how are you? And that really did touch my heart, because I thought, my God, my family members, not one person up until this day, apart from my daughter, but, nobody's ever said, how are you dealing with this? And that was the first time when I felt like, God, I am being heard. You know, Himaya have asked me something which nobody's asked me through this whole process of knowing my son was in prison, then he came out of bail, and then again he went for his sentence hearing. And when he was sentenced and he was taken straight to prison, um, nobody ever, said, be strong, or, stay strong for your son, or, you can deal with it. Be just some supportive words, which really, I think at that hard, difficult time for us, it's like you want to hear those words. You want somebody to say, you know what, you're strong, or, you can deal with this, or we're here to support you. But not once I never really got to hear that. And it was only when I called Himaya Haven, and the first time you said, you know what, you're doing great. And that for me meant a lot. And I thought, wow, there is, there's this brilliant service which I'm now would really love to support and help as much as I can for other parents, or, mothers who are finding it difficult to cope with, or where we can comfort each other by encouraging and supporting one another. So I think Himaya Haven has given this opportunity to us to do that, which I'm really grateful.